The highly anticipated match between Levi Rosman, also known as GothamChess, and Pia Crumling is officially over. Today, in the 6th day of competition, they battled 12 blitz games, concluding this very exciting match, which was essentially triathlon of classical, rapid, and blitz. I think every fan at the beginning had a burning question: is Pia Crumling, the mother of Anna Crumling, the very famous content creator, gonna play her daughter's popularized the cow opening? So you're gonna have to watch the recap yourself to find out the answer to this question. But first we're gonna focus on some of the critical moments of every single game. So this was game number 1. Levi was playing the white color and he had just played queen e2 to hit a pawn on a5 here. Now for Crumling, she had to figure out how to continue. Obviously she's not interested to play rook a8, and she had to pick up the correct move, h5. Now the point is, after h5 she would want to bring the rook on h8 in the game, and if Levi will play something like queen a5, the pawn on e3 is dropping, and after knight x on a5 suddenly d4 starts to look really serious because black has very strong two bishops. Now instead here Pia played for the automatic move d4, which for grandmasters is a very common pawn sacrifice for a lot of activity. However, after knight x on d4, rook d8, here Levi just played queen c3, and Pia was struggling to come up with a concrete plan how to justify her pawn sacrifice. Now she decided to take on d4, which in the hindsight was not a great choice. Maybe an h5 was a better move here. Now after bishop d4, rook d4, she managed to ruin white's pawn structure, but now she has no time to bring the rook on h8 in the game, because if she leaves the rook, the pawn on h7 is under attack by the rook on h1. That's why she played h5, which was just a one move blunder, and of course Levi immediately saw that with d5 he's hitting the rook on h8, also d takes on e6 is threatening, so Pia had to resign. This already gave Levi a 5-point lead again. Before the blitz match he had a 4-point lead in 12 games, so Pia definitely was trying to come back, and at least in the very beginning it felt that it is definitely possible. So this was the second game. Levi had slightly misplayed the opening against Pia, so here he attempted to play a d takes on c4. I think this idea normally works with the Daxwa bishop on c1. The point is, after d takes on c4, black wants to play b5, bishop b7, a6, c5, and open up the position where black has a symmetrical position, probably good chances to equalize. But from my experience with the bishop on g5, very often this is simply too much. And here Crumling showed exactly why this is not such a great idea. So she played bishop d3, bishop b7, castles, and now after rook c1 you see here Levi simply is not in time to play c5, because if he would play c5 here, the pawn on b5 is dropping. So he played a6, and the problem for black is he's simply one tempi short. That's why here Crumling played knight e4, a beautiful positional move, hitting the bishop on d6, also controlling the c5 square, and after a couple of moves later here, now the knight anchored on c5, so giving white a huge advantage. So Levi here was absolutely suffering for an entire game, and let me just go to the critical moment of the game where things could have been different. So it was about here where Crumling was already winning. She had an extra pawn. Black's queen side was falling apart. As you can see, Pia had 34 seconds versus Levi's 10. So here Levi played queen h5, king h7, queen g4, attempting to organize some counterplay against the white king. Seemingly there's nothing, and Pia did not feel the danger. She played rook takes on a5, which actually was a huge mistake. Levi played h5, he did not see the opportunity, but actually could have won the game by playing rook takes on d4. Beautiful shot. The pawn is queen takes on d4, that's a mate on the board, and if white will play d takes, e takes on d4, e3 is a very nice deflecting move, you cannot take it, that's a mate. If white goes here, e2, now this pawn is not only threatened to promote, but there's also mate once again threatened, and black would be winning. Now instead of this, Levi on seconds didn't simply expect this, he played h5, and Pia was able not only hit the pawn on h5, but also trap the black queen, and Levi had to resign. And this meant the score in the blitz portion was 1 point each. The third game was Levi playing with the white color, where he had played He had a slightly better position after the opening. Pia was trying to defend. You see here he had beautiful pieces here, and Pia was just mainly making sure she's not blundering anything. Again, here knight e4 is impossible. There's a mate on g7, and here Levy had to pick up a pretty difficult move for the time scramble, which is either bishop d4 with bishop b6 ideas, or maybe a safer move h3, just in case secure the back rank for your king and also make sure that this sneaky knight cannot jump to g4. Now here Levy instead played rook a7 and lost his guard, because suddenly after bishop c6 he realized he cannot really take on f6, because now after knight takes on f6 there's a problem with bishop takes on f6, the bishop on b2 is under attack, and you have to calculate these things very clearly. For example, queen e2, take it, and if you take it, suddenly black goes for a counterattack. Yeah, and all of this has to be calculated on seconds. That's why Levy decided to play h3, queen d1. Here Pia already was taking over the game, and after bishop e4, bishop d6, there was a couple of missed opportunities for both players. Finally Pia noticed this double attack on the bishop on b2 and opponent f2, and she proceeded to win the game. There's obviously still adventures, because again, when you play only with +2 seconds on the clock, it's very difficult to remain flawless, and Levy was the last one to make a mistake. And here after bishop f8, rook e2, Pia won the game by pinning the bishop, essentially allowing black to deliver the mate. So Pia is approaching Levy. So this is the next game. Pia was playing with the white color, Levy was playing with black, and again in the opening phase, Pia had clearly the better position. So she was playing this out like a typical textbook Queen's Gambit accepted, with Queen d6, Knight e6. As you can see here, the Swedish chess legend had a beautiful knight on d6, and Levy was just trying to stay in the game. He played b6, rook d8, b4, very nice move, pushing away the black knight from c5. Levy tried to kick the knight away. Now comes the powerful move g4 here, and knight e5, followed by a couple of moves later, rook c7. So this is a pretty forcing sequence, and already with the naked eye you can definitely tell that white here has a large advantage, because white is threatening a lot of things on the 7th rank, so Levy was just trying to somehow make some tricks work. f3 was a nice practical idea. After rook d3 he decided to go for a desperate counterattack. So Pia played knight e4, e5, knight e6, watch out for the capture on g7, g5 had to be played, and after rook g7, rook a7, here Levy found knight f3, which still loses, but his idea is to play rook d1 and try to exploit white's weakened back rank. Now after bishop takes on f3, bishop takes on f3, there is no mate because the king always escapes, but Levy of course is always ready to reinforce the bishop with e4. So Pia here played rook c7, missing a golden opportunity. Rook f7 was winning on the spot. Like I already said, there is no mate here, and if Levy played something like h5 here, you can just give a check here, rook takes on f6, and on top of black's problems, not only the bishop on f3 is under attack, knight g5 is also a big threat. So here this would have been essentially game over for black. Now instead Pia played rook c7, and suddenly Levy was black in the game. He gave a check, he played h6. Here Pia was repeating the position a couple of times, but there is no perpetual check because rook c8, king f7, black starts to play for the win because Levy felt that he can deliver the mate. And after rook g7 and a couple of moves later, e4, another check, you see white is simply unable to deliver the perpetual, and here Pia played rook g7 and flagged. She flagged, she simply was not in time to make her moves, and already Levy had a draw in the pocket, and yeah, so Levy was able to score the second victory. So the blitz portion at the moment score was 2 points each. This led to the 5th game. Here Levy decided to take a lot of risks because with every single passing game he was gaining confidence, although naturally there were blunders from time to time, but I think it's very difficult to play blitz games with only 2 seconds increment without making any oversights. So here Levy played rook takes on b6. I actually think this was not a blunder, this was probably a calculated plan. So he gave up to 2 minor pieces for rook. I mean, normally two minor pieces are stronger, but he estimated that his rook and the pawn, by the way, two connected passed pawns at the queen side, should give him decent winning chances. So here, after rook takes on f8, he missed a very nice move, rook d8, probably automatically grabbing the rook on f8. Here, rook d2, and the game was a mess. So I'll just maybe go to the critical phase of the game. At some point, Pia was completely winning. Maybe I'll just go about here. You could see she was simply collecting all of Levy's queenside pawns, and from being up a pawn for two minor pieces versus rook, Levy went down a pawn. So this was simply technically winning position. However, again, Pia was burning a lot of time. She was trying to figure out how to win this game, and at some point she started to make mistakes. She played h5, blundering the pawn, and here this was a pretty amazing moment that both commentators, Anna and Alex, already pointed out, that after rook b1, king c7, rook b1, king c7, Pia was ready to accept a draw. So Levy was seemingly worse in this position. He said, no, I want to continue. He played rook a3, playing for a win in a worse position, which is quite an admirable fighting spirit, and it led to the conclusion, a dramatic finale here. When Pia Crumling played knight f4, she played knight a3, unfortunately forking the knight. And the problem with the forking the knight is, well, the other knight can take it. Otherwise, it's a knight's idea, and after knight takes on d3, after king d4, here Pia had to resign. And this meant that Levy already was taking the lead also in the blitz portion. The game number 6, and starting with this game, Levy already had a feeling that he is in the control of the match, so he afforded to play himself g6, whatever is this, modern or hyper-modern opening, some sniper opening, whatever. So he was starting to take a lot of risks, and here his decision, at least in the opening phase, backfired, because after e6, bishop takes on c7, Pia definitely secured a very big advantage after the opening. So black's pawn structure is pretty ruined, and the knight on b6 is weird, but of course Levy kept fighting. So he played knight e5, he played queen f7, and after knight f3, now this was a mistake by Pia. I think she was only anticipating knight takes on c3 and bishop takes on c3. The bishop on d7 in some lines is under attack, and she just wanted to get a bishop on e5. But the devil is very often in the details. So here, bishop takes on c3 was a major difference. I don't think this was planned, and now Crumling had to sacrifice the exchange, which already is something else. Now the game continued, it was about level. Still, it was a bit easier to play from the white's perspective, because white has all the easy moves and black is just trying to figure out how to trade queens, how to secure the king, how to protect all the weaknesses, and it led to the showdown where Levy managed to force the queens off the board, and we reached the following position. So it already was feeling that this is gonna be a draw, right? So here Cat Levy played the very easy move, rook c8. He had a draw in the pocket. The point is, he's not only threatening to take on c7, securing a draw, but also he can afford to play for the win by playing rook c5 and e5, shutting the door for white's bishop, and then start to play for the win himself. Now instead here, Levy played king g8. I think he simply blundered the idea of rook b8, followed by, most likely, hallucination. After rook c8, rook b8, he thought that he can take on c7 and he's winning. No, actually he's losing, because the bishop protects the rook and he cannot take the bishop because the king is pinned. So here his only move to defend the position was going back, and he is still not losing. However, Levy resigned. So he resigned, he believed that he just blundered in a not losing position, so that's what it was. And this allowed Pia to equalize the score in the blitz match with 3 points each. So the start of the match was very, very difficult to foretell how it's going to continue. So let's move on to the game number 7. This was Levy playing with the white color this time, and here we got to the critical position after the opening. Levy was slightly better. He had double pawns at the king side, but he had some pressure at the g file, and black had to watch out for the pawn on e4. So here Crumling probably had to be a bit accurate, play something like rook e8, secure the pawn on e4, and then see what happens. Now instead here Pia miscalculated. She played rook g6, which kind of makes sense, right? Because she's threatening with rook g2 and bishop h3, very nice exchange sacrifice. retreat to bishop on g4, bishop f3, and go for a king's attack. And she calculated that after bishop takes on e4, she can take on g1 and then capture the pawn on h3. As soon as Levy played bishop takes on e4, she realized rook takes on g1 is intermezzo move bishop f5. So you can't do it. Instead, she had to go here. Levy simply collected the pawn, went for an attack. Levy collected soon another pawn. Pia here missed an opportunity to play queen takes on f2. And white is still winning this. The point is after rook takes on f2, g takes on h5, black wins back one of the pawns. Instead of this, here Levy was completely winning up 2 pawns. Also having 1 minute on the clock versus 15 seconds. I know something very strange started to happen. So I don't know what happened here. Levy again was completely winning, and I think the easiest one was just to go for the mate. Queen g5, f6, queen h6, tried to checkmate. The trade was still good, so he forced the queens off the board. After queen e6, queen e5, now the pawn on b5 is vulnerable. And this led to a chaotic position where Levy had only about 15 seconds on the clock. He gave up the pawn on b5 and started to push his central pawns. But Pia was getting very active, and clearly Levy felt that this is not so easy anymore. So see, he continued to push those pawns. The correct move was d6. He made a mistake, pushed the wrong pawn. And after rook d4, suddenly these pawns are dropping like flies. And at the same time, black is threatening to push her own queenside pawns as well. Now here the game continued to be chaotic. Pia played rook b6, very passive move, clearly afraid of the d6 move. Levy played king g3, rook d6, and now came a move that could have cost Levy dearly in this game. He played rook e5. Now, that's not a great move because this is sort of centralizing the rook, but at the same time this rook is so far away to stop black's queenside pawns from marching forward. So Pia did exactly that. a5. I think here Levy already had to figure a way to jump back to the defense and try to stop this pawn. Instead, Levy made a slow move, king g4. King e8 was, yeah, a very strange move. I think Pia simply touched the king, wanted to play king f6 and realized e7 is losing. Otherwise, I cannot explain really king e8, king g5, a4, king g6, a3, rook e3, and now this was again the crazy moment of the game. Why Pia didn't play a2, I don't understand it. The point is after rook a3, she could play rook a6 and simply win the game. So Levy would have to pick up the move here, rook e1, and after rook takes on d5, the game is very chaotic, but at least for black, the plan is very clear. Somehow Angel says this is a draw. I have no idea how. So instead of this here, rook takes on d5 happened, Levy eliminated the pawn on a3, and he won the game. It was still a crazy time scramble here, he pushed forward the king's pawns, it was a bit chaotic at some point. You see, all of white's pawns are losing support, there was a checkmate threat at some point, he checkmate in one threat, so Levy blitzed out this, played h7, which is still winning, and now after king e7, this would win on the spot. Instead, Levy here played again on seconds, king g5, allowing Pia to play either king f8 or king f7, securing a drawn position. Pia took on h7 the bait and blundered the rook. So those were the tensions in the Blitz match. I mean, crazy swings left and right, a lot of drama, a lot of action in the final seconds. It was very, very tough for both players, and it definitely cost them a lot of energy. Either way, Levy won. So let's move on to the next game. This was game number 8. Again, in the opening, Levy was taking some risks. This was, let me check what kind of opening was this. Yeah, d5, knight f6, e6, some sort of a queen's gambit declined. Pia outplayed Levy completely in the opening phase. As you can see, Levy had a completely suffocating position and Pia had a beautiful harmonious position. So white to play essentially and already win. Pia played g4, which is a very tempting move. e4 was simply stronger. The point is this knight has nowhere to go basically, because if you play knight e7, after rook d7, e5, you just trap the queen. So you couldn't do that. e4 is a very logical move. And if black takes it, knight e4 hits the queen, followed by g4. This is simply lights out for black. You cannot go to d6, knight h4, and just use your imagination. Knight d6, knight f7, or this knight of f7, black's position just starts to fall apart. Instead, here Pia played g4, knight e7, and played g3, a bit slow move for my taste. Levy played knight g6, Pia played queen c2, a very slow move again, and suddenly after knight e5, I think this is a move that the Swedish chess legend didn't anticipate. Queen e7, suddenly Levy's back in the game, he's about to play f6. and it was very difficult for Crumling to requalify as a defender, because this Dutch bishop opened up and suddenly Levy was in charge. Pia played knight e4, attempted to close the bishop. Levy played e5, Levy traded the Dutch with bishops, king b8, and now you see this bishop is about to become a monster. Now here, after rook e1, e4, Levy already was taking over the game, followed by a very quick blunder. Rook b8, b6, Levy found a beautiful idea to open up the b file and use the Dutch with bishop as an attacking piece. There's actually a rule that the obstacle of bishops, they very often serve as an extra piece in a direct attack. Pia played queen a4, trying to go for a counterattack, but she blundered queen c5. There you go, after queen c5, her position just starts to fall apart, and instead of trying to be really simple and trade off everything, Levy did offer to trade queens, but he was also charging forward. Now look at these following moves. After rook c1, Levy did not take on b3, he played a4. The point is rook takes on c4, a takes on b3 is intermezzo move. Queen takes here, rook b3 here, rook b8. With every single move, Levy was gaining more and more confidence, restoring essentially what he lost in the New York City round-robin GM Norm tournament. After rook h2 here, c3 was a beautiful move here. B takes on c3, bishop e7 threatens with a checkmate on the board. P attempted to complicate some things. Here, c takes on b2 was a cute move. King b1, rook a3. Resignation by Pia Crumling. So clearly Levy was in a runaway train. So he could not be stopped at this point. And now I would just like to show you the next game, which essentially just summarizes how confident Levy was feeling at this moment. So he was well ahead in the blitz section, so he opened up with b3. Why not? b3, bishop b2, f3, e4, playing a gambit. Again, it just speaks volumes of Levy's current confidence in the match. Knight c3 offering to take for black to take on f3. Pia decided not to do it because takes, queen f3, hits the bishop, hits the pawn, long castle, following with a king set attack. Pia played knight f6, queen e2, knight f3, long castle. You can see for white it's very easy. At the same time, black has to solve some uneasy questions where to put the king. h3, g4, bishop g2, king b1, keep the bishop alive, knight h4, and suddenly white starts a very strong king set attack. Look at this, Pia was completely helpless here. Knight x on g6, h4, opening up the king side, h5. So white's idea is really simple, open up the h file and just deliver the mate. Pia played g takes on h5, g takes, of course avoiding the queen trade, bishop on a1 hits the queen on e5, here h6 ripping apart black's defenses, h takes on g7, rook h8 is a big threat. So here white already is completely winning, now found more ways to exploit the black king's weakening, and after here rook h6, finally black's position completely fell apart. Queen d5, queen g5, mate on the board. This, I think, by far was the best game of Levy in the Blitz tournament. So you could definitely feel this confidence. He plays b3, he sacrificed the pawn in the opening phase, he absolutely demolished black's defenses. That's the Levy I really love to see. The next game was this one. Right after this fascinating victory, Levy was playing with the black color. He played my beloved Dutch defense. Unfortunately, Levy did not play it well and he was suffering after the opening, but here at least he found a very creative resource in the game. He played knight h5. The point is, after bishop g7 and knight h5, he has some counterattack against the pawn on g3. So Crumling decided to go for a counterattack, sacrifice the pawn, she played f4, and now something crazy happened. So clearly Levy felt he's entitled to play for the win. He came up with a very, very nice idea. He played rook takes on g2, you see the engine really hates it, but the point is, after queen e4 check, Levy thought, well, that's double attack on the king and the queen, and if you take it, I'm gonna take with f-pawn, put my bishop on g4, play rook f8, I have a pass pawn, I have a weakness on f4, I'm gonna activate the king, I'm doing great. Right, except of queen c2. And that's it, that's the move that Levy missed, and he proceeded to play queen f4. There was nothing to be done, and a couple of moves later, he had to resign after he blundered the bishop as well, already in a completely losing position. So this meant one more point for Pia. She no longer could have come back in the overall score, but still very important for the Swedish chess legend at least, scored a couple of important points in the Blitz tournament. The penultimate game, here Levy completely misplayed the opening. He played e4, a3, knight c3, followed by h4. Pia showed her amazing understanding and very quickly took over the game, seizing considerable space advantage, but at some point Levy was fighting back. So he decided to play c4, which was a mistake, because after d takes on c3, b takes on c3, c4, suddenly black's position is not really great. The pawn on e3 is vulnerable, but Pia played b4, which, as Alex Ostrovsky said in the tournament commentary, it's a very strange move, because this bishop in f8 should be activated, so b4 in this regard doesn't quite make a lot of sense. Anyway, this is still Blitz. So here, Pia played knight takes on b4, rook b8, trying to go for some complications, hitting knight on b3, but actually, after knight e2 f3, beautiful idea, it quite doesn't work. Because after knight f3, knight c2, Pia just missed rook c1. If she takes on b3, rook takes on c2 is on the board. Now instead she attempted to complicate matters, rook b3, e takes on d4, and suddenly we got a position where white is easily winning. So here, Levy collected the pawn on d4, Levy played rook a1, which is a very strange move. He had something like 4 seconds on the clock, allowing the skewer bishop e5, so this was missed by pop players. Again, he could have played like maybe rook b1, knight c6, push c5 and just win the game. So Pia missed this as well, trying to get after those pawns, and then Levy never again gave Pia any chance to save the game, proceeded to push forward those pawns, and secured another impressive victory. There you go. So all of this led to the final moment of the match. The big question was, is Pia Crumling finally gonna play the cow opening to honor her daughter Anna Crumling's efforts lately to bring this rather dubious opening into practice? You already saw the position. I apologize for spoiling. No, she did not play it. Unfortunately, no. I was totally sure that she's gonna do it. She did not do it. The final game, unfortunately, was not very exciting because it looked out to be quite a fighting position. I thought that the final game is gonna be something more symbolic, and that's why the cow made quite a bit of sense. I actually thought maybe Levy himself is gonna play the cow, but no, he did not. And we got to this position where black was doing okay. Levy was having a wonderful position. And after g5, knight e4, and bishop f5, which already is an inaccuracy, it doesn't really matter. I'll just show you this critical moment. Levy played queen d7, which sort of makes sense because he's threatening with bishop takes on h3, but the problem is f3 he blunders. That's it. I mean, the knight cannot leave the bishop takes on f6. So Levy attempted to complicate matters. He played bishop h3, he played knight e4, bluffing with some sort of an attack. There's nothing else you can really do. But Pia this time made no mistakes. She took an e4, she played a very cool knight g3, that's a move I absolutely like it, queen f3, and black's attack is just not there. So Levy played something to complicate matters, hitting the knight, hitting the pawn on g2, king h2 is good enough, rook e8, here Levy simply resigned after g takes on h3, 2 extra pieces for Pia Crumling. That's it. So the match is officially over. Levy Rozman won the match. He tied the classical portion with Pia Crumling 2 points each. He won the rapid section. He also won the blitz section. Actually, I thought he's going to be much heavier favorite in the blitz section, and I think that Pia fought back really well. And I think overall this was a very interesting match, this combination of 3 formats, and I hope that Levy is going to continue this sort of tradition with more interesting players. That's it. I hope you liked the recap of Levy's tournament in Stockholm. If you liked the video, please don't forget to press like and also consider subscribing to my channel. I'll have a bunch of more videos coming up, and thank you for watching. Take care.